and welcome to the series on love languages. So we're going to be going through the 5 love languages, what that means for your romantic relationships, but more importantly, what that means for your self-relationship as well, your self-love language or your self-care language. So we're going to talk about words of affirmation, we're going to talk about quality time, we're going to talk about physical touch, we're going to talk about gifts, and we're going to talk about quality time together as the 5 love languages. I want to explain to you a little bit on each video about what they are and then how you can use those as a practice for your own self-love as well. So many people have heard of love languages in the context of interrelationships. So my love language means what my partner, how my partner will meet me in love, or how I meet my partner in love. And this was what the idea was developed about. But something that kind of arose from that theory was actually that not only do we need, one love language, we have a preference, we actually need all 5. And we need not only all 5 to be given from our partner, but actually we need to be getting them from ourselves as well. And so you probably will have a preference of a love language that you like to receive, and a preference of a love language that you like to give, and they might not be the same thing. So as you go through this, you'll be starting to have an idea of which ones you like to give, which ones you like to receive, and then the ones that you like to receive and like to give will also probably be indicators more of the things that you want to receive from yourself as well, things you're longing for. So let's get started. This session is going to be all about the words of affirmation. So words of affirmation is a really key love language for self-love, because it's all about our internal talk, our self-talk. So words of affirmation is saying nice things to someone, telling your partner that they're beautiful, or I love you, maybe being in interaction with them, talking to them a lot, maybe texting them, telling them nice things, like bigging them up and celebrating them when they've done something well. Basically telling them how great they are. And who doesn't love that? And often, if we like to receive that from our partner, it's because we're missing or lacking that from ourselves. You might have a bit of a critical inner voice, or not be able to see your own accomplishments, or not be able to celebrate yourself properly. And therefore, you really want words of affirmation externally to help you to, feel validated in that space, which is completely okay, completely normal. We almost think of seeking validation as a bad thing, but it's not. It's important that somebody models for us what we haven't yet learnt to do for ourselves, and then we can learn how to do it for ourselves as well. So I'm going to get my list up and I'm going to tell you some strategies to do words of affirmation for yourself. So the first one, affirmation. Okay, affirmations is the very first suggestion. So those are telling yourself a loving phrase in that positive I am statement. I am worthy, I am good enough, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am clever. Telling yourself these things. And don't just do an affirmation once of a morning. To really get the most out of affirmations, you want to be doing this multiple times throughout your day, and especially when something comes up to the contrary. So let's say your affirmation is I am worthy, I'm good enough. And if you had something come up for you that day and you felt not really good enough, let's say you failed at a test and then you were thinking, oh my God, I am not good enough. That's when the affirmation is most powerful, to say, actually, I am good enough, I am worthy. And if you can back up that affirmation with evidence, bring to mind a story that proves your good enoughness, or you don't even need to prove your worthiness. I mean, babies are born worthy and good enough, and so are you, just in this moment as you are. You don't need to have accomplished anything, but it can be helpful to have some reassurances of worthiness, some accomplishments, some things that you're proud of, some aspects of yourself that you really like, so that when you do doubt yourself and you say that affirmation, it doesn't just feel empty. It feels like it's really grounded in truth, and that you believe and resonate with that truth. So the next thing that you can do for words of affirmation is mantras of self-compassion. So if something difficult happens, I sent a lot of self-compassion exercises into the positive psychology group chat. But if you are looking for words of self-compassion, it might be things like, oh, I can see that you're having a really hard time right now. Saying this to yourself, rather than like, oh, you should be able to just do everything. It's, oh, I can see you're having a really hard time. It feels like you can't do everything all at once. And so then you're like having compassion for yourself, giving yourself that kind of sense of reassurance when times are difficult. And so it's like almost being your own best friend and comforting yourself when you have a time that's challenging or difficult. And if you want more practice on that, Kristen Neff has some incredible practices for self-compassion, and a lot of the words that she says, suffering is a part of life. Suffering happens to all of us. This is natural. This is okay to feel. I'm sitting with you. I'm feeling this with you. I feel compassion for you. Those kinds of things can be really, really nice to hear, rather than kind of adding a second layer of distress by beating yourself up over something that's already difficult. So another way that you can tune into words of affirmation is actually journaling about your strengths. So if you are in part of the Positive Psychology Challenge, you might have seen that I sent out doing your strengths assessment using the VIA character strengths. So if you haven't already done that, go over and look up VIA character strengths assessment, and you can find your top character strengths. And if you journal about your character strengths, you can really start to see stories and times that you have used these strengths and ways that they really weave into your life, and it can make you feel really good about yourself. So giving yourself a time to remember times that you've used your strengths, or document things that you've accomplished, or things that you feel naturally good at, things that you've worked really hard to achieve, things that you like about yourself, things that you do well. And this is really powerful, because then when you go back to the affirmations, you have this whole kind of repertoire of things that you've thought about that is your positivity, your strengths, the good things about you. So if you haven't already done that practice, go back and do the strengths practice, and then come to do some journaling around your strengths. The final thing is to notice when your self-talk becomes negative and intercept it, change it to be positive. So we can often become our own worst critic, and we'd say things to ourselves that we would never say to anybody else. And so in that situation, it's really important that we call out our inner mean girl and tell her that's not okay. And guys have an inner mean girl too, it's not just women who have this. It's a sense of like somebody being super critical and talking to you badly. And it might be resonant to something a parent might have said. It might be not. It might just be, a part of you that is particularly mean, that puts you down, that tells you that you're never good enough, that nags at you, that points out your flaws when you look in the mirror. And if somebody else said that to you, you would probably say, that's not very nice, or don't say that to me. Don't talk to me like that. Imagine one of your colleagues spoke to you like the way that you speak to yourself when you look in the mirror. And you would think, bloody hell, they're not very nice, they're really rude to me. So the next thing is not standing for negative self-talk. And that's one of the most powerful ways you can give yourself words of affirmation, is standing up to the bully that lives in your head. It's like you create a second part of you that's not the bully, that's like standing up against it, that takes on the bully on your behalf and says, no, actually, you won't talk to me like that. That's really not very kind. What are you trying to achieve from saying this? And often with our negative self-talk, what that part of us is actually trying to achieve is it's trying to achieve something to keep us safe or to make us lovable. And those are really the two core things. And when we see that, we can start to have compassion for the negative thoughts in our head. So often, especially if they've come from parents, our parents were just trying to keep us safe and make sure that the world found us lovable. But they often did that in a way that was heavy-handed, that was critical, that felt like we could never do anything right, that really got at us. And so when you have a kind of negative inner voice, is usually based on, if you do that, you're going to embarrass yourself, or, things will go badly for you, or, this is something that's unlovable. I'm pointing it out so that you can fix it. Like, if you can look underneath the negativity, then you notice you're not actually against the inner voice. You're working together. It's just, it's clumsy. It doesn't know how to tell you the message. And so that's another piece of work that you can do. And if that feels like way too much to handle by yourself, literally, I understand that. Like, hire someone to help you. That's the type of work that I specialize in as a mindset coach. I know that loads of therapists and counselors specialize in this kind of work. People train for lots and lots of years to be able to help with, like, basically managing your inner relationship with yourself. So if this stuff does feel like it's heavy or overwhelming, look for support with these kinds of things. So those are 4 really simple ways that you can tune into words of affirmations as a self-love language.